It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Ooh, doo-doo-doo-doo. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. At your own rendezvous. Hello, Queen Purple. Welcome to my live stream. Today we're going to talk about homeschooling as a single mother. I wish I had bought some water out here. I'm actually slightly perched at the moment. Hopefully TikTok decides to notify you, the people. I never know if they will these days, but I'm hoping to get my account back on December 7th based on the initial strike down that I received. Today we're going to talk about homeschooling for single mothers. Had an interesting conversation with my sister. My sister homeschools 3 girls, and she has her hands full with that. And she was actually talking to me about Christmas yesterday, and I guess she just realized that Christmas isn't actually a Christian holiday, that it's kind of been grabbled, and Jesus wasn't born on Christmas. And I was aware of all this, and she was torn now because she doesn't know if she wants to celebrate the holiday with her children. I told her, I've been aware of this stuff for years, and to me it's just a cultural thing, but it is interesting the things that people believe really on a widespread level within our culture. But that's a side note. So I figured I'd do a stream on homeschooling as a single mother as my beef with the single mother community continues to escalate. Of all the communities I've beefed with. By the way, most single mothers absolutely love me, and I've worked with many of them, but I made a post on my other channel, Cubs to Bears, and man, the outrage I got from single moms was crazy. A lot of single moms coming in there defending me, for the record, but I basically did a quick 1-minute video in which I asked, why would you send your children to daycare or public school when these institutions serve as government indoctrination centers? And I went on to explain the problem with public school and why homeschool is superior. So I wasn't bashing parents who send their children to public school. I was just pointing out the paradigm of your children will be better off if you homeschool them. And man, I got a lot of rage from people who were like, how dare you shame me? How dare you put down people like single mothers who don't have the privilege to homeschool? And I'm like, whoa, first of all, I didn't put down anyone. I simply asked a question as to why people would send their children to daycares or public school when they have the option to homeschool. I understand everyone, is in a different circumstance, and it might not be as realistic for certain people. Give it. I run a homeschool company, and I've worked with families of single parents who homeschool, and I've worked with families that are very poor that homeschool. One of the frequent responses I got was because people are poor, so we have bills to pay. Okay, you know how many poor families I've worked with that homeschool? Like dead broke families? How much coffee did I drink today? I don't drink coffee because I live a healthy life. Thanks. This guy could pull every mid-30s single mom. Well, luckily I am very happily married because one of the areas I agree with them is that I am privileged. And I'm privileged because I married well, because my wife is incredibly supportive. She's an amazing wife. She's an amazing mother. My children are so blessed. I have 2 beautiful, healthy children, which of course, it's always a curveball when your child winds up having a disability. So I've been blessed in that manner. I married into a great family. I have great in-laws. I have great parents, great support systems, right? So there's no doubt I am privileged. Everyone's privileged in some regard. The problem I have with this swarm of single mothers is the lack of personal responsibility I've seen in the comments. I think there isn't a pandemic in the world, but it's not what you hear about on the news. It's a pandemic of people who don't take personal responsibility, people who become attached to their victim mentality, which is one of the worst things you could allow your children to see. Never let your children see you feeling like a victim, even if you are, right? I mean, this notion that everyone loves to be a victim, it's like, it's so played out, and it's really pathetic. It's really pathetic. Literally, everyone in the world, based on what happened in 2020, could cry victim, right? I was in New York during the you-know-what, right? During the start of the you-know-what, which I'm not allowed to, the things we're not allowed to talk about, right? And I have very freedom-oriented beliefs, and I wouldn't cover my face, I wouldn't restrict my breathing, and I was harassed everywhere I went. And I could have been like, oh, I'm a victim, but I would never allow that mindset to creep in. Because what I tell myself every day is that freedom isn't free, that it requires personal responsibility, and you have to earn it. And yes, I am more privileged than certain people, and I'm less privileged than other people, but that doesn't even factor into my mind. I don't care if Johnny down the street has every resource in the world. One, I'm happy for Johnny down the street. Two, I might try to learn a little bit from Johnny down the street. And three, I look to God, and whatever I have, whatever my circumstance, I will do my best to learn from it, to adjust, and to take as much personal responsibility in my life as possible. And for anyone that hasn't followed me, and by the way, I'm going to get into this, and I'm going to answer every one of your questions today, by the way. But for people who aren't familiar with me and my story, I was in New York during the start of the sham-hemic situation. I sold my cushy Long Island house, right? Had my nice Long Island home, right? Long Island's affluent, right? It's one of the nicest places in the country, they say, to raise children and have a family, right? A lot of money there. Well, I sold my Long Island home because I refused to live life in debt, because I saw that they were controlling people through financial leverage, right? I had a mortgage, financial leverage, and through food. So what did I do? I sold my house. I moved across the country to a state with a much lower cost of living. And now I have land. I live out of debt, and I understand that is a privilege, but it's also a lifestyle choice I made. I live out of debt, and I grow my own food. Personal responsibility is so important. Why do I need attention so badly? Well, I like it. Thanks. Thanks for asking. All right. Okay. I mean, you don't have to... Why do you show up in streams with people you don't like? Get lost. All right. Like, I would never go into someone else's stream and try to insult them. I think that's like, what has to go on in your internal world that you're like, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to show up in someone's stream talking about their life, helping people with homeschooling, and I'm going to show up in their stream and I'm going to ask them why they like attention so much. Or I might show up in someone's stream and challenge one of their points, but I would do so very respectfully. Like, I wouldn't write like, oh yeah, that's what you think, laugh out loud. Like, that's a douchey thing to do. Asking me that question is a douchey thing to do. And I don't care about social shame, and I don't care about social pressure, which is why I take the controversial positions that I take, and I don't try to be liked by everyone. So no, I really don't care about attention. And if you want to get lost, get lost. But don't show up in my stream and insult me. That doesn't reflect poorly on me. That reflects poorly on you and the lifestyle that you live. So anyway, and by the way, I am going to go through all your comments and read them and everything. And we're going to talk about single moms. But the point of this is that I made a choice of personal Marine princess in the house. Okay, turd Ferguson. So I made a choice in my life to sell my house, to get out of debt, to move across the country. I make a choice to homeschool my children, right? I made a choice to start a company, right? It's very easy to me. I have a master's degree. I could get cushy jobs. That's not hard for me to do. I have, before I started my business, I had a impressive work history, right? Then I started my business, which is a big chance. And I probably make less per hour than I would working for someone else, right? I work a tremendous amount of hours. I'm usually up till 2 in the morning still working. I publish 7 books, right? And all of this, I'm not saying to brag, Turd Ferguson. I'm saying that my life involves extreme personal responsibility. I don't drink alcohol. Not an alcoholic, but I don't want my children to grow up in a culture in which they see their father drunk all the time. So I grew up from the time I was 12 years old. The culture I was in was drink, 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 drink. Well, I stopped drinking almost 2 years ago because I will not have my children grow up in that culture. It's called extreme personal responsibility. I grew up, and I know this is kind of a gross topic, but to me, everyone watched pornography. It wasn't even a thought not to. And then as I grew up and I found God and I started to realize the pitfalls in these things, and I realized that I am disrespecting my wife, right? And all that stuff with that type of behavior. I'm dishonoring my children. I haven't watched pornography in years. And again, I don't talk about that because I love attention or to brag. I'm talking about extreme personal responsibility. Yeah, I told a lot of people that were getting at me on the Cubs to Bears channel because they were mad about me questioning why people would send their children to daycare and public school to pop over here, and I'll show them how they can homeschool as a single parent. So I got some of the haters in here, but that's okay. They're invited. They're welcome, because believe it or not, in spite of my tone and in spite of my aggression, anyone who follows me knows all I do literally every day is help people literally change their lives. In fact, not 1 week has gone by since June or July, June, in which people have literally said to me that they homeschool because of me. So I know I'm making a difference in the world. And I don't care if I come off a little cocky, because if you're going to be in this internet world, if you're going to take the heat, well, you better have a little bit of that in you. And I certainly have a little bit of that in me. I'm not going to apologize for it. You can't speak on something that you've never experienced. Def Cannon, you're not understanding the point. Everyone has different privilege. Everyone comes from different circumstances. But when you adopt the mindset that you are a victim in any way, then you become that victim. If you keep a mindset that no matter what is thrown at you, adopt the mindset that you are a victim in any way, then you become that victim. If you keep a mindset that no matter what is thrown at you, you will adjust and you will overcome, you will find out how quickly you are not a victim. And you will find out how... Whoa, we're flipping around, people. I'm going to move closer to the house. I don't want to keep losing the connection here. Going to get a little bit closer to the house. Oh my God, he's so privileged with his house. I know, thanks. Okay. That better? Yeah, I know. I could work on the production value. Okay. So, with that being said, I gave my talk on victim mentality, and talk about something I know nothing about. I run a homeschooling company. I've worked with tons of single parents who homeschool. I definitely know what I'm talking about. So your mindset's the problem. Okay. So the first thing about homeschooling that people need to understand, and we're going to get into how homeschooling is done and why you're perfectly capable of homeschooling as a single parent. The first thing is that parents who haven't homeschooled think they have to replicate that 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. public school schedule, 45-minute blocks. And do I know homeschool programs that are good for dyslexia? Yes, Gemini, Gemini, Gemini homeschooling systems. There's also another one in my private Discord. I'm not paywalling you. I don't know the name of it, but Gemini, check that out. So with homeschooling, you don't have to replicate that 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. public school schedule. Realistically, you at most need 2 hours of formal schooling a day. And especially with young children, if you're doing more than 2 hours a day, you're really already doing too much, right? You don't have to replicate public school. In fact, one of the biggest advantages of homeschooling is that you have the flexibility to operate on a schedule that works for your family. So some people homeschool in the morning, and again, you only need 2 hours a day of formal education at most. So some people get all their schooling done from 7 to 9 a.m. Some people get all their schooling done, their homeschooling done after they get home from work, from like 5:30 to 7:30. Some people do their schooling strictly on the weekends, right? You can homeschool at 9 p.m. My oldest is 3 years. I am fairly confident that we will homeschool. What can I do to prep now? Yeah, so for a 3-year-old, you want to focus on fine motor skills, because your fingers are your pre-writing skills. Lots of art, lots of music, reading every day, story time. How do you get around not schooling for 6 hours a day when it's required? Okay, so that's a good question. So while the schooling is required, you have a lot of flexibility as a homeschool parent to determine what qualifies as schooling hours, right? So when I say formal education, right, like there are certain things you might want to do with your child. Hey, Lou, stop barking. There are certain things you might want to do with your child, like you might want to sit down and do penmanship, that type of stuff. You might want to sit down and do math. And that's like you might need those 2 formal hours of the day to do the history, science, math, and writing. But everything else, really, I mean, you could watch a movie, right, a historical type movie, and your child could watch a movie, and that could qualify as homeschool hours. Over the weekend, you and your family could go on a field trip to a museum, right, spend the entire day out in the town, and that could qualify as 12 hours of homeschooling, right? So you want to check hslda.org and check the regulations in your state, because every state's a little different. But in terms of how you calculate those hours, you really have a lot of flexibility, enough so that it makes homeschooling on a tight schedule much more feasible. But we're also going to get into the 6-hour thing, because there's other ways around that as well. So how it's calculated, all right. So one of the advantages of homeschooling is that you don't have to do it by yourself, right? People think homeschool my child sitting at home and, they're sitting at a desk in the house, where the truth is homeschooling is life school. And you can do homeschooling at the aquarium on the weekend. You could do homeschooling at the local museum. You could do homeschooling as a family, whatever you want to do. But you can also have other people assist. And with single parents, the most important thing you can do is find your community. So right now in America, there are over 11 million people homeschooling. It is not impossible to find people in your area. In fact, if you know how to search for them, you'll be able to find them where you can kind of operate on rotating schedules. So how does that work? Hey, I'm a single parent and I have to work Monday through Friday, right? I have to work Monday through Friday for 8-9 hours a day, right? So what you say is, okay, I am willing to host a class for other homeschool parents where I will take your children, right? It's responsibility. I'll take your children on one day a week, whatever day that is you're free, whether that's Monday, whether that's Saturday, whether that's Sunday, whether that's Tuesday, whatever day you're free. I'll take your children for that day and I will homeschool with them for X amount of hours. We'll do this, we'll do that, right? And what you do is you find other parents who kind of want a similar, who have similar needs to you, And then you take the children on Monday, they take the children on Tuesday, you get a third family, they take the children on Thursday, and then over the weekend, on Saturday and Sunday, you do some type of formal schooling. Right, networking. For a single parent, the most important thing you can do is network. And if you understand the power of this and how to do it, you can pull off homeschooling. It is very doable. I've known many families that have done it. Now, where do you find... I'm a homeschooling mom of 4, all different ages. I've been doing this for the first time, full semester. Congratulations. And I truly believe that the homeschool mother is the modern day Rosie the Riveter. Our nation is being subverted through the education system, and we are begging the mothers of America to take control of the education of the children in this country, because if you do that, then they're not being indoctrinated. Your family will be better off. Your community will be better off. Your nation will be better off. Your country will be better off. Marine Princess, I got to figure out how to make you a mod. I don't know how to do that. So finding other families in your area. For one, I'm going to ask the myriad of homeschool parents in here, how do you connect with other homeschool parents in your area? And then I'll start talking, because you guys will come up with ideas that I don't have. But the most effective way, surprisingly, because I rip them a lot, is to go onto Facebook. And, all these social media platforms are just tools. I don't like Facebook as a company. I think what they're going to do with the metaverse is going to be very dangerous for the next generation. But, right. Yeah, people are saying. So I'm getting responses already. So post on moms groups. Right. There's there's mom groups on Facebook. There's homeschool co-ops on Facebook. Our state has local homeschool sporting leagues. So you sign your child up for a homeschool sporting league, right? And then you connect with the families in that league and you ask them if they want to form some type of alliance where you work together to homeschool. Single dad here who started homeschooling this year. That's amazing. A Facebook group is a great way to connect with people. I'm a single mom. I live in Washington, wanted to start. Congratulations. That's amazing that you have the courage to take this leap. Click settings on the right side of the screen and then click moderator. Comments. Admin settings. Moderators. Add one. Oh, Marine Princess is in business. Add. All right, I got a mod now. I'm going to put my wife on there too. All right. Mrs. Jenny, you're a moderator. What a legend. Okay. I didn't know you were here, Mrs. Jenny. Obviously, you're a moderator. So let me just see if other ideas from all of you about meeting other people, and then I'll give you some of my own. By the way, if any of my mods decide someone's out, they're out. I give them full power. Single mom of 2 looking to homeschool. Co-ops are a great resource. Yeah, so, all right. So just to recap, we did Facebook co-ops, Facebook mom groups, Facebook mom groups, local sporting leagues for homeschool families, but also local sporting leagues for, like the YMCA, local soccer teams, right? There are a lot of sporting leagues outside of the public school system in which you could connect with. Even if they're not homeschool families, you could connect with other families. And I promise you'll probably will connect with other homeschool families in that situation. The next thing you want to do if you want to connect with local homeschool families is you can call local museums, local gyms, what's the trampoline place? Altitude, local museums, local gyms. What's the bouncing place? Anyway, the place with the big bounce castles that you take the children, all of these places host events for homeschool families. So what you do, if you're looking to connect with homeschool families in your area, is you call them up and you say, hey, are you hosting any events for homeschool families in the area? You go to those events, and when you go there, you let the children play, you go
to the park at off times during school hours.
My wife over here.
Gotta read my own damn comment.
Oh, my wife said you also, you go to the park during school hours, right? As we've met many homeschool families doing that. And you can meet homeschool families. But being strategically minded, if you call up the museum, if you call up Altitude, if you call up Bounce You, that's what I was looking for, your local gym, right? By the way, a lot of local gyms actually host phys ed classes for homeschool students. So that's one way to get those hours, right? Maybe, every, Tuesday and Thursday at 11 a.m., they host a homeschool phys ed class at a local gym. So you call up these places, you say, hey, are you hosting any events? Our closest children's museum gave us a year's membership for being homeschoolers, right? So these are great ways to network, right? Because if you're a single parent, your hands are full, right? I acknowledge I am privileged. Like, I have the best wife in the world, and our hands are full, and we're like, we're a high functioning team. We work well together. We both give 100%, 1,000% of the time to our family. And I understand how hard it is. So you need help. And the best thing you can do is to network. So use the Facebook co-op groups, use the Facebook mom groups, call the local churches, the local museums, the local gyms, find out when they're having homeschool events, join local homeschool sporting teams in your area, go to parks during school hours and see which families are there, because often those are homeschool families. Sorry about my dogs. They're just the neighbors doing something and they're going nuts. See if you guys had any more ideas. You'd be amazed by what counts toward these classes. My question is, how could someone who needs PT or OT homeschool? So that's a good question. So another resource that a lot of homeschool parents don't know they can utilize is under IDEA law. And I'm not a lawyer, right? So this is not legal advice, but I am vaguely familiar with this stuff. So under IDEA law, sorry, I just get a lot of notifications popping up. Private schools are allotted a certain amount of resources for special education services. So if your child needs physical therapy, if your child needs occupational therapy, you can actually contact your local school district and ask them if they provide special education services to private schools. Because your homeschool child actually technically qualifies as a private school. So when you get them evaluated through your local school district, you might actually be able to get the OT and the PT through the local school district, even though you homeschool. And by the way, in a lot of states, your children could also be on the local sporting teams, the public school sporting teams, and they can be involved in the extracurriculars like the theater and the art club. Not every state, but a lot of them. Another question. When the kids get to high school, how do they officially graduate for college? It's a good question. Okay. So most people ask about the diploma, right? When it comes to homeschooling. So will my children get a diploma? But if you think about when an 11th grader applies to college, they don't have a diploma. What they have is a transcript saying that they've completed X amount of coursework, these subjects, and they've received these grades, right? Around me, we will still allow homeschool kids to play sports at the school. That's awesome. So what you really need is the transcript. And the way you do that is you keep really good records. So a free service that's available is called Homeschool Sked Track, SKED Track. and it assists parents in keeping their records. Now, the records you need to keep are the subjects, the classes that you've taken, the subject matters you've covered, any portfolio material, any extracurriculars, museums, sports that the church that your children have been that your children have taken part in. And you just create the transcript, and then when your child does graduate high school, when they complete all of their coursework, you actually issue a parent-issued high school diploma. Now, I know what you're thinking, that can't possibly be as good as a public school-issued high school diploma. Well, on average, homeschool students actually perform better than their public school peers. So colleges actually these days are looking for homeschool students, and there are plenty of homeschool students at Harvard and Princeton, so they get a parent-issued high school diploma, but it's not the diploma that matters. Don't think that. It's the transcript that matters. Homeschool Sked Track is a free service, SKED Track, and in a few minutes I'll cover free resources for single parents as well, because if you're a single parent, money is probably tight, I would imagine. Okay. All right, so we have homeschool groups on Facebook, mom groups on Facebook, local homeschool sporting teams, local sporting teams, museums, gyms, Bounce U, Altitude, all great ways. Going to the park during school hours are all great ways to connect with homeschool families. Another way to do that, and Def Cannon, I appreciate you being here, and I wasn't getting after you because I have any type of personal vendetta against you. Everything I try to preach, everything I try to do is to teach people extreme personal responsibility, because unfortunately this life kicks you in the you-know-what, and life is hard in this world, and whether it's the government, whether it's corporations, whether it's our family, our friends sometimes, whether it's circumstance, like we get kicked down, and the only way we can overcome that as individuals, as families, as communities, as a society, is if we take any type of victim mentality, any type of looking at other people with privilege, and we just toss that out the window. And we say that no matter what's thrown at us, we can overcome that. And once you adopt that mindset, yes, you'll still have setbacks, and like sometimes you'll try things. Like I've tried a ton of things that just haven't worked, and I got beat back, and you could say, oh, that's failure. But I never fail. And the reason I never fail is because where other people perceive my failure, I perceive as a learning opportunity. So I say, okay, what did I do wrong there? And how can I do better next time? And then I just adjust, readjust, and keep trying to do better in my life. And because of that, I have done very well. And I have a bachelor's degree, and I have a master's degree, and I had success in my work career. And then I started a company, and I have success in my company. And I have an amazing wife and a beautiful marriage and children. And I published 7 books, and I'm not saying all this stuff to be braggadocious. I don't care about that. I'm saying this stuff because I'm pointing out that there's a certain mindset that we as a people should adopt. And the most important thing is we as parents, when your children see you take that mindset, your children will adopt an abundance mindset. Your children will take on that winning mindset, and they'll have advantages that you don't, because your children have a parent that's really committed to them. Your children have a parent that's willing to show up at a homeschool forum with a guy that you didn't even like. You probably still don't like me, but a guy you don't like, and you're willing to hear him out because you're so committed to being a great mother, right? And that's the advantage your children will have. And if you take these steps and really embrace these principles, there's no limit to what you can do, and there's no limit to what your children can do. And I can't tell you how many amazing parents I've met, because when you get involved in the homeschool community, you really do meet people that embrace extreme personal responsibility and people that will do anything for their children. And I mean, I have met people that it's amazing some of the things they do. And I see people like Marine Princess. And, the more you get involved with it and you spend time around this community, you'll see that, a rising tide really does raise all boats. So the last thing, I think church groups are a great way to connect with local people in your area. other homeschool families. Just go to your local church, or your local church is. Stop at them. Just knock on the door and say, hey, I'm a homeschool family in the area, and I'm looking for other homeschool families to connect with. Can you point me in the right direction? And you'd be surprised, because the churches know the community, and they'll be like, yeah, these people homeschool, right? So you can do all of that. These are all great ways to connect with other homeschool families. I don't hate you at all, and I'm truly interested. But a defensive lion mama. Yeah, I mean, I love my mama lionesses. They're what make the world go round, right? I'll tell you what I saw during this pandemic. Oh, I said a bad word. The algorithm is coming to get me. What a world we live in. It's like, did you say that word on the internet? Oh man, a bunch of authoritarian tyrants. Get lost, tyrants. We don't need you. We don't need you. Yeah, but what 2020 showed me, that a lot of women are much more willing to fight for their family and for their country than men in this country, which is like, it shows the demasculization of America, or the feminization of the American man, has really come a long way, because so many men just laid down and took it. And I saw these mothers walking into Trader Joe's with a big smile on their face, like, you won't cover my breathing hole. I saw them in droves. I was like, where are the men? Where are the men? I mean, listen, if you want to find those men, join the Bataria Times app. Like, that's my community, that's my nation, right? Join the Bataria Times app. You'll find those men. They're masculine as you know what in there. But America needs that right now. America needs the masculine to rise, because, I mean, we are getting rolled up. People are getting rolled up. They're taking people's rights. They're indoctrinating our children. They're telling people they can't go to the grocery store. They're telling people they have to choose between their bodily sovereignty and their job. This is authoritarian at a level that people couldn't imagine 10 years ago. Rise, America. Rise. We will rise. But the truth is that even though what's happening is terrible, there are millions of people all over America. See, like, that's the type of behavior. Like, that is feminine behavior. See, Richard Jones 112 just said, laugh out loud. Okay, buddy, your laugh out loud is feminine behavior. That's unbecoming of a man, right? And if we were in a masculine society, you would understand that. If you had a problem with what I said, you could make a point explaining why what I said is wrong. But you're like, laugh out loud, okay, buddy. That's the feminization of America. I would never act that way. And the reason I wouldn't act that way is because if you act that way in the face of a man, you would understand it's a problem, right? You've been harassed by the so-called authorities all your life, never mind standing up. Yeah, well, listen, you stand up. You don't have to stand up. See, like, people think we need a revolution. By the way, I'm not the most masculine guy in the world. I'm not claiming to be. Like, I never claimed to be. I know a lot of people I look up to who are really men's men, who I try to be more like, who I respect, I admire. But, you know, I do have an idea of that I need to be strong for my family. I need to be strong. Masculinity is good if it's used. No, well, that's real masculinity, right? So, like, when I say rise up, when I talk about the masculine, right, I'm not talking about, right, there's that Spartan masculinity. That's too masculine, right? Like, right now, America is too feminine, right? Like, everything is about how people feel. Right, like, oh my God, this group has privilege. Oh my God, I'm a victim. It's kind of like that participation trophy culture that started in our public schools. Like, of course, everyone should get a trophy, right? Because everyone played and tried hard. Well, that's kind of that. That's the beautiful feminine, right? That's like that motherly, nurturing, caring mindset that we care about feelings, and that's beautiful. And there's a place for that. I think it's a good thing. But when that becomes dominant, that becomes socialism, right? That becomes, we need to tax everyone because we need to take care of other groups of people. You need to cover your face with a mask because, you need to worry about other people getting sick, right? It becomes totalitarian feminism. Whereas the other spectrum of that is that ultra masculine Spartan, like, if anyone crosses us, we will let them know. I'm like, that could be bad too. You see a lot of that in some of the Middle Eastern cultures, which I have nothing but respect for Islam. But just in terms of like some of these Middle Eastern cultures are the extreme masculine. They're the opposite end of that. Whereas, if you do certain things, they'll throw you off a roof, right? And that's not good either, right? That's like, these societies, they're like, a 17-year-old boy was caught stealing bread, cut his arm off. It's like, no, that's too masculine, right? You need to find a balance. So when I talk about rising in America and the restoration of the masculine, I talk about how do you become more manly? So what I talk about is first you embrace the traditional masculine role. And that doesn't mean being dominating. That just means I, as a husband, understand that I always have to put my wife in front of me, right? That's a masculine trait. I have to serve my wife, lead my wife, and that doesn't mean I'm beating her or telling her what to do, right? It's just, I need to be a rock for her. I need to be solid. I need to be a good father, right? So embrace your tradition, embrace being a husband, reject the hookup culture, call it for what it is. Tell other men that you don't treat women that way, that it's not okay to, go to a bar, tell a girl that you're going to make all her dreams come true, sleep with her, and then never talk to her again. I don't want that person in my community, right? Speak truth. That's a masculine trait. Also a feminine trait, by the way. That's the divine feminine and masculine. But the feminine might do it a little more indirectly. But it's definitely a trait for both the feminine and the masculine. Embrace those traditional values. Marry. Embrace being a father. Embrace being a husband. Always put your family first. Take personal responsibility. Right? You need to make sure that your family has security. So that might involve getting a side hustle, starting a business. That might involve growing your own food. That might involve taking care of animals, right? But it involves extreme personal responsibility. And it's not about it's not that masculine that they paint of like that bang in your chest. Like there's a place for that, right? Like if someone breaks into my house or tries to harm my family, they will see that masculine side of me. And maybe I'll lose out in that situation. Maybe I wouldn't. And I am willing to die for my family. Never mistake that. But that's not that's needed, but that's not what we need to be the dominant. We need extreme personal responsibility and an embrace of the traditional role within a family, in that you need to protect your family, provide for your family, and raise your children right. And that doesn't mean you tell your little old lady that she has to stay home, right? Like that's not what, see, that's how they grabble it and make people think that women are being oppressed. It just means I want to create the environment in my home so that my wife has run a business. We moved, so she ran a aesthetics business in New York. Now, obviously we moved, she couldn't bring her clients with her, so the business closed down. So we moved across the country. But I made sure that I was doing the things so that she could work if she wanted to, and she didn't have to work, right? So it's all about just putting family first, protecting your family, raising your children right, and speaking truth, making sure that threats are addressed, that whatever those threats are, you prepare your children. So it's 420 Drya in the house. I'm homeschooling 2 extra kids today. What a legend. And that was the topic of our talk about if you're going to homeschool as a single parent, you really need to find community to rotate with. And that could be other homeschool families that you could find through Facebook co-ops, Facebook groups, church groups, knocking on the door and asking local churches for homeschool families, going to parks during the day, during school hours to see who's there, because if they're not in school, they're probably being homeschooled. Calling local museums, gyms, Altitude, Bounce You, just to find these families. And then also, you know, grandparents, aunts, uncles, like get your family, get your friends involved and ask them if they will help you on this journey to educate your children. You'd be surprised how many people are willing. Sorry, I clicked on a link. How many people would be willing to help? Hold on, 420 Dry. Guess what? I figured out how to make admins, and you are definitely an administrator. Moderators, add 420 Drya will always be 420. Oh, you're not showing up. Drya. I don't know why you're not showing up. 420 Drya. All right, well, I'll figure out how to make you an admin, but you're not showing up right now. Huh, I wonder why that is. Do you have to be friends with other homeschool families? Well, what I would say is you have to at least know them well enough that you're comfortable having them watch your children. So everyone has different levels of comfort. I used to do, before I was doing my homeschool business, I took a shot at being a grassroots reporter, and I reported on some of the darkest things in our society. Like, I did deep research into some of these really satanic networks that hurt children, and I did reports on them and like the mafia and the crime families and how they tie in with the politicians and these Ghislaine Maxwell type networks. And like it takes me a while to get for someone to earn my trust, but we'll start out small, let them earn your trust, and then you can have them watch your children. But, you face that same problem in public school too, right? Like, there's a big problem with that type of abuse in public schools, right? Like, we always hear about the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church is terrible with that type of abuse. But did you know that actually occurs more in public schools than it occurs in the Catholic Church? Now, they don't tell you about that on the news because they do not want a mass exodus against public school. They do not like people like me. I've learned that. I've learned that from all my shadowings. Oh my God, he's so controversial. He's telling people to homeschool. He keeps knocking on public school. By the way, can I talk about the reason I bash public school? I am not bashing parents who send their children to public school. Everyone is doing their best and coming from different circumstances. I bash the institution of public school because we're shifting the cultural paradigm to the point in which people start to view public school as like, oh shit, man, I have to send my child to public school. I don't want to send my child there. And by shifting that cultural paradigm, more and more people will pull their children out. And as more and more people pull their children out, it will get easier for everyone to pull your children out. Because when you walk outside and there's 6 families on your block homeschooling, it becomes a lot easier to homeschool, right? All of a sudden you're like, yeah, I'm a single mom, but like everyone on my block homeschools, we'll just rotate, right? It's all good. It is my life's purpose to bash public school, so I'm going to keep doing it. And unfortunately, when I do it, a lot of the time, like I get responses from like, how dare you? How dare you? And I'm like, I don't care. I will never stop. I will never, ever stop. I don't just believe in God, I have a relationship with God. And my purpose here on this earth is to teach people how to educate children and to eviscerate the institution of public schooling. And I'm going to continue doing that. Now, I'm not about just tearing down, I'm about building. So right now I have 2 channels. I have this channel, Classical Learner, which I think I get back December 7th. Now, for anyone that has followed this channel, they know that I'm constantly posting how-to homeschool videos on this channel. My plan is, if I get the account back December 7th, is I'm going to make this account solely for homeschool. So every day I'm going to do how-to homeschool videos, and that's it. And I'll use my other account to kind of do the cultural thing where I kind of bash public school and promote my books. So that's my plan. So I don't want to use the other account too much for the homeschooling stuff, because what I found from this account is I would do videos like about cultural stuff, and then it would change my algorithm. So then when I did the homeschool videos, it wouldn't reach homeschool families. And then I would do a bunch of homeschool videos, and it would change my algorithm. And when I did the cultural videos, it wouldn't reach the cultural families. So like, I think I have to have one account for the homeschooling, one account for the cultural stuff, and that's how we'll do it. Man, this has been a great talk today. I see, that's another like masculine trait, right? Like, we have a society that like, everyone thinks conflict's a bad thing, or like conflict means I have to hate you. I don't hate people for disagreeing with me. Now, I'll rip on that guy who brings the laugh out loud, because it's disrespectful behavior, right? But you come into my chat and don't laugh out loud at me. But conflict itself, disagreements are good because they bring resolution. And I have tons of friends that are like staunch liberals that I really respect. I have friends that are extremely right-wing that I really respect. I have friends from all different backgrounds, people that send their children to public school. It's okay to disagree with people. It's okay to have conflict. And when people realize they can have conflict without hating each other, like they can speak their mind, say their truth, and then come to an understanding, it really helps everyone involved. So that's another part of society which, again, the masculine part of society has been removed. Now, I got little babies, and God willing, more on the way. So, all right, did you guys this has been a good, Majestically Awkward. You're definitely a mod. That's a moderator. Hold on. Admin settings, moderators. Majestically. All right, I don't know. It's not letting you come up either. I'll figure out how to make you a mod. Yeah, if you guys have any questions about whatever, but specifically homeschooling, well, I'm here, and then I got a day planned with the fam, so. Plus, I have a 2:00 phone call with an insurance broker. I need to get new insurance because I moved across the country. So I was in New York, and it was like, my health insurance in New York is just crazy. It's like a mortgage. It's like a mortgage in New York. So I'm really excited about meeting with this insurance broker and seeing if I could get Carolina insurance now, because I live here now. You have a great day too, Majestically Awkward. In California, we don't have to start school till 6. What do you recommend before that age? Yeah, well, just because all that means is you don't have to file paperwork at the school district and, keep records and stuff like that. But schooling, what I always tell parents is, I started homeschooling my children the day they were born. Yeah, just crazy with the price of New York health insurance. I started homeschooling my children before they were born, so you should definitely be homeschooling children under the age of 6. I think you should definitely be doing a good amount of formal schooling by age 5. You could really do formal schooling, some formal schooling, but very minimal at age 3. More formal schooling by age 4. I'm talking just like an hour at most. Nothing crazy. And then you just want to create a culture of learning more than anything else. So like, yes, you want to focus on the fine motor skills. You want to focus on pre-writing skills, lots of reading, read family story time, read for 45 minutes before bed every night. You want to kind of set up their play area so it's Montessori. So you want to have arts and crafts areas. You want to have music areas, that type of things. I like the Prodigy's music program for children over 4. But really, you want to establish a culture that we're always learning. So, like, the other day, my son asked me how the toilet bowl flushes. I stopped everything I was doing. We took apart the entire toilet bowl, took the top off the toilet bowl, examined the handle, how it connects to the plastic piece and the chain, examined the flushing mechanism, how if I lift the centerpiece up, it will continue to run the water. Then I took a screwdriver and I took the lid off of the bowl. We examined how the lid was on the bowl. We put it back on. Right, and my child's 3. So, like, unschooling is about following the curiosity and the interest of your children and using it to teach them real world skills. So you want to start doing that as much as possible, because you want to establish a culture of we follow our interest, we explore our curiosity, and we're always learning. We have been there learning through play. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, set up your kind of play area Montessori style, because I just like it as a philosophy in terms of your children, when they're playing, they're learning. So, all right, guys, my private homeschool community, Homeschools Connected, promo code TOGETHER is $10 a month. I am Classical Learner on Instagram, Classical Learner on YouTube. I post the replays there, although I haven't done it in like 2 weeks. I really need to do that. Classical Learner on Gab. Everyone should get on Gab. What Andrew Torba is building is phenomenal. If you want to meet some really based grassroots masculine men that I talked about, it's not mine. Another host invites me to go live with them. What do you think? Should I do it? Oh, it went away. I usually wouldn't do that, but I'm feeling a little feisty today. So the Bertaria Times app is, you will find the most based people on the internet. But the only rule on Bertaria Times is no darkness. So anything you post has to be appropriate for a 5-year-old. So it's really just homesteading families and just absolute legends. All right, guys, this has been a lot of fun, but I've got to run. Freedom isn't free. We have to earn it every day. And I'll be back tomorrow at 12 to earn it.